Welcome to the Nerd Party.
This must not register on an emotional level. First, neutralize John's tangents. Then, block Darren's inevitable complaint of dark cinematography. Counter with a hot take on Guy Ritchie's direction. Discombobulate. John will attempt a wild point about the canon. Employ the redirect. Body of the review. Downey's performance, frenetic storytelling, the Holmes as action hero conundrum. Now fracture consensus. In summary, 1 contested director, 2 hours of kinetic chaos, 3 opinions, diaphragm hemorrhaging. Critical recovery, 1 week. Psychological recovery from Jude Law's mustache, 6 months. Creating a successful sequel, uncertain. Welcome to Houselights. There you have it, folks. Welcome. We are so excited to continue our wing of Sherlock as we talk about Guy Ritchie's 2009 Sherlock Holmes. It was starring Robert Downey Jr., and it transformed the Victorian detective into a brawling, wisecracking action star. And I think that's going to be the kind of the brunt, the chunk of our discussion tonight. As you might have guessed from the intro, I have the lovely John Mills and the intelligent Darren Moser. How are you guys tonight?
Oh, I'm just managing my tangents over here. That's what I'm doing. So that's, that's cool. Darren, how's the cinematography over where you are? Can you see everything? Is that okay?
No, it's the lamplight. I tried to guess who Moriarty was, but he was always in shadow. I hated it.
For once, it seems like that was intentional.
Okay.
Surprisingly.
I'll give him that one.
That's the only one, though. That's the only one. Yeah. No, listen, man, I'm excited to talk about this because this is an injection of adrenaline, surprisingly from Guy Ritchie, straight into this house. Yeah. Because like everything up to this point has been exactly what Sherlock is who you expect him to be. And this is the first one to really shake it up and be like, no, you know what? We're going to do our own take on it. And like, this is the first time in this director focused podcast where I'm like, okay, I can see a director's imprint on this. This is him doing this story. Nobody else can do this way.
Yeah, Guy Ritchie has such a distinct style, and to a lot of people, they say to his detriment, because he just can't walk away from it. When he made Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, people were just like, oh my gosh, wow, this is amazing, this is so different, this is so new, this is so edgy and real. And then he comes out with Snatch, and we're like, okay, yeah, this is Guy Ritchie kind of refining it. And then he keeps going, and we're just like, okay, all right.
You know what you're gonna get with a Guy Ritchie movie.
You know what you're gonna get with the Guy Ritchie film.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a director who his style is, and the thing is, I'm going to be careful here, hasn't evolved in the same way that Nolan's has, for instance. Like Nolan, you can see through his filmography, he keeps building and adding and he's refining and building as he goes, making it more complex, more convoluted and stuff like that. Whereas Ritchie really does seem like he's just in a very comfortable lane and he doesn't want to leave it, to your point. Whether that's good or bad, that's to the taste of the viewer. Like, yeah, I mean, at the very least, when I see Guy Ritchie's name on a movie, I'm like, I know exactly what I'm going to get right now. I know what I am signing up for, and I'm either going to go or I'm not because I want to see Guy Ritchie's take on something like this.
Now, as we're recording this podcast, he has released Young Sherlock, a TV show that was produced by Guy Ritchie. Has either of you guys seen it? I haven't seen it yet.
I have not. I've had it highly recommended to me.
So it's really interesting.
Stained glasses, 0 stars.
Yes.
No, not that young
Sherlock. The man who developed the concept was Lionel Wigram, and he developed the story as well. And he, after reading lots of Doyle and early Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, he noticed that it was a bit more physical and action oriented and less cerebral as it went later on. So to him, it was kind of like returning to the roots, but then amping it up to 11. which this movie is very much amped up to 11. This was a Warner Brother Pictures Village Roadshow Silver Pictures, released in the tail end of 2009, Christmas of 2009. We got Downey Jr., Jude Law, Rachel McAdams, Mark Strong, Philippe Roussello for cinematography, Hans Zimmer for music, and screenplay was by Michael Robert Johnson, Anthony Peckman, Simon Kinberg. This movie had tons of drafts and several writers, and it was very much like, cool, we have this cool concept and we want to get it right, but yet, you know, like a lot of people put their hands on it, put their touches on it, and
Surprise,
they wanted this to be a franchise.
Is hard.
Yeah.
It's a hard formula to get right.
So did you guys notice anything? Oh, actually, let me ask first. When was the first time that you saw this? I saw this in the theater with my sister, and it was just the two of us. I think it was just the two of us. And we've rewatched it together pretty often, just the two of us. Like, actually, I went to go see her a couple of weekends ago, and we watched this one and the sequel in one weekend. Like, we were just like, yeah, we're going to do that.
I saw it. I'm pretty sure Basic Cable was the first time I happened across this. Would have been because this would have hit Basic Cable while my kids were still pretty young. So it would have fallen right into that era wherein I saw American Gangster about 400,000 times because it was the only thing on HBO at 2:00 in the morning sort of stuff. And so Sherlock, I have a faint memory of the house I was living in when I encountered it for the first time, and that I was sort of doing the skimming thing. And it was interesting enough for me to stop and say, okay, well, I'll stay with this one for a bit. And then I wound up watching the whole thing all the way to the end. So that's, so far as I'm concerned, that's the highest praise you can give a movie, is that it's interesting enough that when you're just poking around and you stop for 2 minutes, you're like, okay, well, let's see how long we can ride this. And then you wind up riding the whole thing to the end. That's, you know, it was good enough to do that for me back then.
Darren, how about you?
Yeah, for me, well, I saw it in theaters. I remember this coming out and the, you know, very well marketed, very much hype. You know, it was, I'm trying to recall, don't quote me on it, but I feel like this is the kind of movie where they might have shown like a whole sequence, like maybe the boxing sequence or maybe not. I'm probably misremembering it, but
I don't think so. I don't remember that.
Just standard trailer, you know, voiceover and all of that. But yeah, this movie though, I remember there was lots of hype for it, and because it was something different, and it was, I mean, 2009. So we're right after Iron Man. So Downey Jr. is
fresh off of Iron Man.
Is like the king. Just obviously they were producing it in 2008 and all of that, but. So this was perfect timing to come out.
He would have been in production for Iron Man 2 by this point, right? Because they fast tracked that, didn't they? Didn't Iron Man 2 come out pretty quickly after?
I think it came out in 10, I think.
Yeah, it was 2010.
Yeah. So he would have been in production for that while this was going on, wouldn't he? Like when the movie's being released. So it would have been like perfect timing because he would have been
when
on
it was released. Yeah, so it was Iron Man, Sherlock, and then Iron Man 2, I think.
Yeah.
So he was consistently busy. And let's just go right into it. Let's just go into Downey Jr. You know, let's talk about it. So like Holmes is kind of twitchy, manic, brilliant, of course, and reckless. Apparently on set, Downey really wanted to improvise. And some directors, like, no, if it ain't on a page, it ain't on the stage. But Ritchie was just like, yeah, no, go for it. And so sometimes you can see and hear some anachronistic language with some of the improv. So Darren, what did you feel about Robert Downey as Holmes? Did you feel like Iron Man, you know, smoking a pipe, or, you know, was it?
No, I think, I mean, hearing that he was allowed to improv makes sense, but it felt like if that was the case, there were guide rails like within the Holmes character. You can't go full off, so that, but he's given a room and he's playing within it. But yeah, this was really interesting watching this time, because I think for me, this was probably the first Holmes story I ever saw. Like I had not watched any of the classics like we are in this house of Houselights. So it was interesting now rewatching and seeing things like making the flies fly in concentric circles. I thought that was just from this movie, but we saw that in another movie, with Holmes doing it. So obviously it's from the same source. That makes sense. But this interpretation, it, for good or ill with Guy Ritchie, it worked. It worked as far as drawing me into Holmes' mind, the mix of slow-mo. Like I felt, this is literally the textbook definition of a fresh take on an old source that pulled it off.
Yeah, I think that Downey's Holmes is different enough from Iron Man that I don't feel like he's just phoning it in. But there is unquestionably a solidification at this stage of what the default baseline persona is going to be for a Downey Jr. leading man, at least in a blockbuster. Like I can see the consistency in how he's going to deliver certain things and the type of energy he's going to bring to certain situations. Where I'll give him a lot of credit, and Ritchie a lot of credit, is that this is not he's not in control the way that Tony Stark is, where Tony Stark is sort of like a focused madness sort of thing. Whereas what I really enjoy about what he brought to this is that I believe in Holmes as somebody who is manic and who is exhibiting not a singular type of addictive personality, but the type of person that's going to trend towards addiction. And it's just a question of what he's going to land on that finally, hits that right self-medication cycle for him. So this feels like a Holmes who hasn't discovered heroin yet, but when he does and he can suddenly sleep at night, he's going to be like, this stuff rocks. I actually got 8 hours of sleep, man. I don't know what's been missing in my life, but that was it. Like that's the type of Holmes I see here. And yeah, for me, that works a great deal.
I really like that distinction of not addicted, but yet an addictive personality. Because that's an important distinction. I really like that. One thing that I really liked was Jude Law as Watson, bar none, my favorite Watson. Absolutely. Like this is my favorite cinematic Watson. And I think Martin Freeman is my favorite television Watson. I absolutely loved how they made him. He's not bumbling. He's not the comic relief. He doesn't even really feel like a sidekick. I mean, he is, but it's definitely not Batman and Robin. It's more Batman and Nightwing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Of course you'd go with that analogy. Okay. I see. Yeah.
But the thing is that one thing that I really enjoy is where they started, where it would have been very easy if you wanted to start a franchise, to start it at the beginning of their career together, have an origin story or something like that.
Where they met.
It would, yeah. And with this one, they didn't even start in the middle. Like oh wait, no, like, Watson's moving out. Like he's breaking up the gang. He's breaking up the team. He's getting married. And Holmes is not okay with it. I think that was a genius move because it's built-in drama. It's built-in internal and relationship drama. And Watson was was played so well by Jude Law that he almost stole the show for me. I'm a huge Jude Law fan. I'm sure other people are like, you're crazy. Downey is perfect as Holmes. I'm not arguing. But for me, I freaking love Jude Law. And he really felt like Holmes' equal. And I don't say this in a weird way, but almost like a husband kind of way where he has to take care of him. Like they have such a deep relationship where like they're bickering like an old married couple, but they're equals with different strengths.
I agree with you. It's equals with different strengths. And you can see these guys being friends, and it's sort of like the Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday thing going on in Tombstone. But with this, I would say that it's not necessarily like I get what you're saying with like the husband sort of thing, but I would say that every single person on God's earth is friends with somebody where other people think that that person is a raging a-hole. But you love that person and you will go through fire with them. You will die for them. And that's the sort of relationship I see. We're like, nobody will ever understand why Watson is as close as he is with Holmes, but Watson understands why he's as close as he is with Holmes. And Holmes feeling threatened by the impending marriage makes perfect sense, because on subconscious level, Holmes understands he can't function without Watson in his life. He will go off the rails.
Well, and I really agree with what you said, Tristan, about almost stealing the show. They played it so well in this story where, yes, it's Sherlock Holmes, but you could almost title this Sherlock Holmes and Watson. He had such a large part, and like you said, their dynamic was central to the story. Their interactions, their, you know, how they're going about it. And yeah, it was a great idea. Put the inciting incident of this isn't at, you know, not Ravenwood,
Blackwood.
There was a wood in there. It's not Blackwood. It's not even the Moriarty. It's instead it's him moving out, and that is where all of it's coming to a head. And it makes it interesting. You're starting the story not, oh, once upon a time and then things are happening. It's like, no, like, when is something changing from the status quo that's shaking up your characters? That's interesting. That's, you know, and it also lets you, I mean, again, imagine if they had started this as the meeting, you wouldn't have any of these conversations that showed that they knew each other intimately. They knew, you know, like, oh, he's like, oh, boxing, you know, stub because he's gambling again. Like, oh, just, it rolled off the tongue in the story, and you wouldn't have had any of that. And it just would have been lesser for it. So yeah, great. I mean, I was looking up with Guy Ritchie. These two Sherlock movies are one of the few that he didn't write. He also very much writes his own pieces. So for one reason or the other, I think chose the better choice of not writing this and instead just being a director.
Well, he was definitely a hired gun, because this was a concept that was developed without him, before him, and they brought him on, and they had such problems with the script. Getting to that point, they're like, we want you to direct, but here's your script. Of course, I'm sure he had input and everything like that, but they were like, we're not starting from scratch.
How do you feel about Sherlock boxing? Because I feel like we need a boxing scene.
But the thing is, that in and of itself speaks to the importance of, even if you're a hired gun director, of how much a director can put an imprint on a work anyway. Ritchie, this is a Guy Ritchie movie.
This
period.
is a
Full
Guy
stop.
Ritchie
I don't care
film.
that he didn't write it. He directed this, and it's like, this is him.
This
Like,
is Guy
there's
Ritchie does Sherlock Holmes.
no question whatsoever. You bring another hired gun director in, and it's like, oh, look, he's a boxer, and he's thinking it out. The whole slow motion dissection voiceover thing, where it's like, you know, deliver a blow here, do this here, and you see everything in slow motion, then you see him deliver it in real time and immediately communicating, oh, I spent the half a second in his brain where he was thinking through everything, so that when I see him do it, I feel as smart as he is. And it's like, that's pretty brilliant. I don't see any other director bringing it to life the way Ritchie does. I see a lot of directors that would be very bland with how they communicated it.
And if I read the script a long time ago, the actual script, not the transcript, but the script. And the boxing scene was just described as a boxing scene. It was just like, oh, he did this and then he hit him, and then he was super cool and then knocked him out. Like, none of those slow-mo.
Yeah.
Like none of the slow-mo, like, this is how I'm going to do it, was in there. So that makes me feel like that was Guy Ritchie. I have no resource on that. It's totally guesswork on my part, but that feels like a Guy Ritchie invention, where it's just like he took a scene and then was like, I'm going to Ritchie-ize this.
Well, and from reading about things Guy Ritchie has said about this movie, apparently the two things he definitely made sure he gave the axe, as far as not having for Sherlock, is no deerskin cap. You know, that's gone, burned it, it's dead. and no like straight up elementary My Dear Watson, cliche copying. Like, again, there's plenty of other things, and we know this is Sherlock. It's not that kind of movie where we're questioning, oh, is it actually Sherlock? He's not wearing a deerskin. Like, no, he's not. Data picked it up, took it to his holodeck. He's all happy. We don't need it here. But
Speaking of input, too, I forgot to mention this, but Jude Law was a driving force behind Watson being competent and a romantic lead.
Why not?
And I think that was a great idea. I think that's when actor vanity wins.
Why on earth would you cast Jude Law? Watson?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I mean, Jude Law is anything but a heartthrob. I mean, duh.
Yeah.
It's
like, you happen to cast bookish Jude Law who doesn't, no.
You're like, I'm thinking about like a bumbling fool who repels women. Jude Law.
Yes, exactly.
That's
right.
What we're gonna do.
And honestly, I really love the sort of like the energy he brings to that pull between the world that his future wife offers to him, the stability, the esteem, the career, the stuff he says he wants, and then the thrill of being with Holmes. And Jude Law is a really fantastic actor, and he plays it really well, especially when they're at that dinner scene where you see him super uncomfortable because Holmes is saying all the stuff that's true, but he doesn't want to admit about himself.
He's also saying it as an ass. Like he's
no question. But
they really explore that dynamic in the sequel. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's that was another aspect that was amped up, where it was Jude Law as Watson really dissecting what he wants. And it's thrust upon him, and he has to. It's very much in his face.
I couldn't tell you a single plot point. I don't remember it at all.
Unfortunately, America's opinion, because I think it was extremely underrated. Like, I watched it just recently again, and I really enjoyed it. I was like, man, why didn't we get a third one?
I remember enjoying it, and I remember not hating it, but it just, the singular, like any sequel, it didn't have the singular magnetism of the first one. That what year told its story.
What year did the sequel come out?
It was 11. So 09 and 11.
That it didn't stand a chance of finding an audience. I've only seen part of it, but the Marvel machine was fired up by that point. People didn't want to see Robert Downey Jr. as anything but Iron Man at that point. Like, that's it. That was his career. And it's like, he even there was even a movie.
$500 million. Like it.
No, but like, you put Robert Downey Jr. out there. There was even a movie that he did, I think, with like Robert Duvall at some point, and like the whole ad campaign was like there was a TV commercial where he was like, I really appreciate you going to Marvel movies, but small movies like this are super important too. So if you like these Iron Man, come and see this, please. It was something like Robert Duvall played his dad, who was a judge, and he was a lawyer or something like that. But like that, audiences will do that, man. They typecast you. It's like, no, I want to see Iron Man. That's your role right now. So it's like, that's why it's even more baffling. Anyway, that's one of my tangents that you hinted about, Tristan. You did a terrible job of reining me in.
Distract.
And bring me in.
So Rachel McAdams as Irene Adler was an interesting choice. I am a big McAdams fan. I think the woman has a lot of range, and anyone who has seen Game Night knows that she has some severe comedic chops. Good Lord. She can do drama, she can do action, she can do comedy. She's fantastic. I don't know if I would have cast her in this role if I was a casting director. What did you guys think about Irene Adler being an American? Do you feel like she had romantic chemistry with Holmes? She's obviously a bit more active than in the original story. What did you guys think?
I think it was very obvious that it wasn't the perfect choice as soon as she has to explain why she's not doing a British accent. Oh, I'm from New Jersey. I was like, oh, you can't do a British accent. Okay, gotcha. Like, seriously, like that's just where my brain goes immediately. Is I was like, they cast you because you're a good name and you're a competent actress and you're good at your job. Oh, but you can't do, okay. Just we'll say that you're from New Jersey and you're good. Like, that's exactly how that came across to me. I think that the script struggles with finding out who she is, with like figuring out how she works in the story. It's to the detriment of the movie because they kind of have to re-explain her every time she comes in as like, remember, poke, remember, she's, as like, oh, right, yeah. And then it feels like she simply exists for certain moments, like getting rescued, unfortunately, that she would exist for that moment in the pig slaughtering, slicing thingy or whatever.
That was a good scene.
It was a great scene.
But like you said, yeah, she's there to get rescued.
It feels like she's there for that. And then they were like, okay, well, we can't, this is modern times, guys. We can't just have her in this movie for this reason. What are we going to do? I don't know. Let's make her Holmes' old lover and she's working with Moriarty. Yeah, that sounds good. I love
how you said like it's in modern times, but yet you're like a 1930s gangster or like newsman.
Extra,
like, what are we
extra.
Well, that's how they all talk in Hollywood still, right?
No,
so.
You're right though. I would define it as the character does not exist once she leaves your view in the screen. Like, it's like she vanishes. And because when you actually start to think about it, like, where is she going? Like, what is she doing? Like, they don't give you any of that. It's just she's going to pop up when she needs to pop up. And that's it. And there's many movies that do that with characters. It's not like a sin, but it also just firmly does not put her into the trio of Holmes and Watson. She is always going to be on the outside of that because, and that's just not the direction they went. But I enjoyed her performance. I think she balanced against, Robert Downey Jr. really well, as I immediately believed their chemistry. I immediately believed that this was kind of a, it didn't work out, but I still have your picture on the mantle. Like, there was at least enough chemistry for that. Like, I bought that right away in the way they portrayed it. But then she disappeared once she left the frame. So
I feel like there has to have been a version of the script wherein she and Kelly Riley's characters were combined as one entity. And then somewhere along the way, it got split into two for very valid reasons. I wouldn't have liked Watson's love interest being the one that they have to rescue. Like, that would have been too pat. But I feel like they separated out aspects of the character, like they separated out the needs of the story, but they never quite wrote either character up to the level that they needed to be. But I think that's also because Law and Downey are so good together. And I think Mark Strong is a great villain. Like, the guy's just, it's almost like the Joe Mantegna curse, where it's like, part of me believes he has to be some sort of evil person because every time he plays a villain, he does it really, really well. And I'm like, there's something naturally about you that makes you seem dangerous.
I'm sure he's like the sweetest person.
Oh,
and
probably
like
so.
Bakes on the weekends.
Yeah,
It's got to be something adorable like that.
Like he and Stanley Tucci high-five each other as they swap lives every 6 months. I'm pretty sure that's how it goes.
Something like that. But I think he's a very effective villain.
Oh, Mark Strong is amazing, especially as Lord Blackwood. And I love that he was, Holmes loves the occult. He loves, exposing, these cults as these magical cults as not magical cults. And so I want to get into the plot a little bit because it felt, some people have argued that it's convoluted steampunk nonsense. That's a direct quote. And I definitely don't agree with that, but I understand why people would think that. So, like, we go from Holmes and Watson stops Lord Blackwood's ritual murder, which I really like that's where we started it. Like, we started it right with capturing the bad guy. It's kind of like Face Off, where Travolta captures Nick Cage at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And then you have Blackwood, who is executed, then rises from the grave. Have a series of murders, target parliament members. Blackwood seems unkillable. Holmes discovers Blackwood is faking supernatural powers. Blackwood's plan is to use fear of a cult to seek control of British government. Irene is hired by Moriarty to manipulate Holmes into stopping Blackwood. And Tower Bridge climax, we have Holmes exposes Blackwood's tricks, defeats him, and Moriarty reveals as true villain Sequel setup, he hands over the Joker cards and then flies away. Was that too much? Too little? Was it too little and not done the right way? What did you think about that? Like, does it matter when the character dynamics and the action scenes are so good?
No, I think you just answered the question right there. That's where I think Guy Ritchie as director is so vital. I think other directors would not have been able to make this work. I think that Ritchie makes it so electric in the way that he constructs things that everything you just walk through right there on an intellectual level, I'm like, yeah, it's kind of, But while you're watching it, I could have cared less. I was having such a time with it that you kind of have to like, and you know, again, it gets to that whole thing where it's like, movies are entertainment. Were you entertained? If yes, movie did job.
Entertained?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. But like, if yes, movie did job. Movie successful. That's it.
I mean, for me, with Blackwood and Moriarty, I think they towed the line really well because there was just enough Moriarty to kind of like set up for the next movie, but Blackwood is not Moriarty and he's not meant to be, because I think I remember the first time watching this being like, oh, is Blackwood the red herring and not really like the big villain? And I would say he is the big villain. He is the main villain of this movie for sure. Someone might be pulling his strings a tiny bit, but it is his, as far as everything we're presented, he is the villain. And I think that was a wise choice because once you add the name Moriarty to your villain, there's a ton of baggage that comes with this. Whereas I don't know who Blackwood is. I don't know that story or if it's even an original or amalgamation of different Holmes villains.
It's completely new.
Yeah, so I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what he was going to do. And that kept it interesting and fresh. But what I'm saying with the balancing act with Moriarty, like, it was okay. I personally could have done without Moriarty pulling the strings or even being mentioned. He didn't need to be in this. It personally, for me, I was okay with the amount they put him in. But any more, and it would have been like, okay, like I get that you want to set up your sequel, but do not do it at the sacrifice of my movie. And it was a balancing act. I will say that. But I mean, Mark Strong was amazing. It was, and again, I love how this, with Holmes being set in the 1800s and you have, was it 18? Yeah, like 1890s, so the fact that you can have this occultness and this mysticism and science and all these things, like, but I love how Holmes pulls back the curtain. It's like, no, you did it with this and you did it with that. And it worked. The whole story, I mean, for whatever burdens they had to go through to pull this out of development hell and get a legitimate story, the story was the best part. It was an amazingly well constructed Holmes story.
But see, that's one of the things that's so fascinating to me is that it was in development. There are so many things that sit in development hell that never get pulled out. Why is it that certain things get pulled out? It's a rhetorical question. I know what goes into it. I know certain, decision making, blah, 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 money sunk in, name attached, all of those sorts of things. But it's fascinating to me because you would have thought that by the 21st century, they would have just said, let's just give up on the whole Sherlock thing. Like its time has passed and let's just move on. And I'm glad they didn't because this movie gets produced as a result. But it's so fascinating to me that it got produced at all because it would have been so easy after taking all of that time trying to produce it just to be like, you know what, we just can't figure this one out. Let's just walk away, guys. Like we can't really do anything with this. That would have been valid to me, a valid business decision to be like, this just isn't working, everybody. But like the fact that they stuck with it and then something this entertaining came out of it, I think you wind up breathing new life into everything. Like I would say you could point to this as like, well, that's why we're still getting Sherlock stuff today. It's because they proved that they found a way. Guy Ritchie found a way to update it in such a way that modern audiences liked what they saw. And after the movies we've watched up to this point, I wouldn't have given it good odds. I would seriously have been like, I would have been the exec in the room sitting there being like, God, why are we doing another draft, everybody? Like whose project is this? Can we please kill this? I'll give up one of mine to kill this, because look at our track record here. This is not a moneymaker. And instead they come in and they, boom. But I think part of it as well is that Ritchie's a hot enough name at this point, and you have Robert Downey Jr. attached to it. Once you get Downey Jr. attached to it, it makes perfect sense to make it, especially after Iron Man. It's like, oh yeah, what projects do we have that he's attached to? Yeah, that one.
And it's funny that you talk about like Sherlock of the 21st century, because a year after this was released, we get Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman as Holmes and Watson. And I feel like that is what, when somebody says Sherlock or Sherlock Holmes, and you're either our age or younger, that's probably who you're thinking about, is Benedict Cumberbatch. Probably not even Downey Jr.
You know what's funny is I think of Downey Jr. first.
Really?
Because I have an action movie heart. And so something that's action oriented, where I would draw the distinction as Benedict Cumberbatch, I'm sure, is very more story accurate. I love his portrayal. I love that series, all of that stuff. And he's that, he's the intelligent, D-bag that's like, oh, what a jackass sort of stuff. This Holmes is fun. I like this guy. This guy, like, I would enjoy watching him be who he is. I wouldn't want him anywhere near me, but like, I enjoy watching him be a jackass. Like, I like that. It's way entertaining for me. And the fact that there's action involved, I'm like, yay. It's almost like bringing that Indiana Jones sensibility that they wanted to graft on in young Sherlock Holmes, and finding a way to bring in that, I'm a professor, but I'm an archaeologist, and I'm, going through tombs in Egypt sort of stuff. Like, they find that balance here. And so, yeah, my heart goes toward this as my Sherlock Holmes.
Now, Darren, what did you think about the cinematography and production design? Because so often with Victorian era pictures, it's just gray.
Right.
It's just gray and fog, and this really isn't an exception.
Yeah, there's a lot of blue and gray, but it worked. Like, there were moments of color. They did a lot of color in a lot of the it was appropriate color. Like, a lot of the costumes had splashes of color or things like that. It wasn't like, and then Holmes puts on a red suit. Like, they would, why? He wouldn't do that. Like, it doesn't make sense. So, but no, this movie, yeah, I think did a great job in its cinematography and its production design. I felt in the world. It didn't feel like, the fog's rolled in, so I can't see 10 feet. There's obviously scenes and shots of that, but it worked. It also had I think it balanced between having a look and being an accessible look, where it wasn't like, oh, everything is yellow and for some reason it just doesn't work, but you're going for everything's color graded to the nth degree. Like, it wasn't, the colors weren't washed out or gone. They were just within the appropriate palette. So I enjoyed the production design. And again, you need, the strongest thing, honestly, about the production design is it needed to be grounded in, because you're dealing with the occult and mysticism and stuff, like the science and the trap doors and, secret things, like everything had to feel real. Otherwise it's a stained glass window jumping off the wall and magic. And now we don't, once it's actually magic, you lose something.
I could have stood a little more color. This feels, I'm sure, I don't reject it, because Darren, to your point, this is what visually I accept London of this time period to look like. So it's like everything's, got that sort of like steely gray, cyan sort of tilt to it. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But in some scenes, it's almost like Zack Snyder's Sherlock Holmes, where I'm like, I could have stood a little less color washout here and maybe just a little bit more splash in the other direction. But I think that there were specific moments where the costumes were allowed to bring that color energy into the scene. And at the very least, like in the beginning, that opening chamber wasn't, just flat looking. Like it at least had some richness to the image and everything. So, I think it benefits from the fact that an audience is going to come to it, and he could have probably even darkened it and made it even grayer, and people would have been like, well, that's just what London looked like back then. We just accept it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I feel it's like they went the other way. Instead of, when you got your contrast knob, if you make it too gray, everything is just flat and gray, and it's like you're looking too far. But they kind of went a little bit the other way, where the blacks were black. Like, the contrast was turned in the other direction, not in a negative way. Like, that was the look, but I felt it felt to me like that made all I can say is contrast, like the contrast of the movie and the way it affected color. And this, I think of Sherlock's office or house, like there's texture and things everywhere.
True.
And that is
true.
And the dial's just a tiny bit twinge towards, I don't want to say popping, because it's not like color is popping, but the texture and the contrast of it is the look of the movie. I'll say to give it a name.
The one point where I wind up really falling out of love with the look, and it's just a product of the time, is the digital background extensions don't always work as well as they should. But this, especially at the end when they're fighting on the bridge, I'm like,
when I walked out of the theater, one of my main criticisms of the movie was it felt like 6 different effects houses did the movie, and they all did it in 6 different styles.
Yeah.
I feel like the fire looked different from the movie. The set extension looked different from the movie. The slow motion looked different from the movie. Like, everything had its own unique style. Like, it was a Guy Ritchie film, as we've talked about several times. But the effects the style of effects all looked different. Like, it was a different person doing them. And this movie does not hold up visually in terms of effects. It doesn't. The CGI, the green screen, the digital replacement does not hold up. And it makes me wonder why. Clearly they put the money into the action sequences, but what got cut in the VFX budget, and it pulls you out of it. I really do believe that. Like, that's a mark against it, is that it very much pulls you out of it. But one thing that I think rises above is Hans Zimmer's score. I feel like this is one of those love it or hate it scores. I freaking love this score. I even used it in the intro of this show. I love how it utilizes broken piano and out of tune guitar. You even get some string instruments that come from the Roma culture. And it always kind of made me feel like it was all, jittery and off kilter, just kind of like Downey's performance of Holmes. Darren, what did you think about the music?
Oh, 10 out of 10 for the music. From the intro and the slight build of the music, but really, I think the best sequence for the music is where Holmes is putting on his disguise, going through the back alleys. Like, it is, the music becomes a sense of smell. You are hit with it every time he comes around a corner and a different thing is in his path, and there's the strong man, and now he's by the bakery, and now he's here. Like, it is so rich and just comes across so well. Yeah, I love the score to this movie. It unabashedly is like, nope, this is what the sound of this movie is going to be like, and holds its guns the entire way through. And it's something that was different, that was unique, that was not orchestral. It's not an orchestral movie. It's not a Williams-esque score. It's not, symphonic in that regards. It's, street urchin beatboxing in the, in the alleys, but it works. It paired with this movie, it works. And it's also memorable. Like, you hear that little harpsichord tinge of those couple of notes, immediately what movie that is. Immediately. And not all scores can do that, where you hear a few bars. Obviously, there's bars and there's bars. If you do the beginning of the Raiders March, you're going to know where you're listening to. But the score was amazing in this. Like, it set the bar really high, and you knew it was like a buckle up. We're this is what we're going to get, and it paid off. I didn't feel the score was too big for what it was trying to do. It wasn't too different. It worked. It was a brilliant score. One of his best.
John, you seem to have a differing opinion.
No, not at all. I don't know that I would agree that it's one of Zimmer's best, because that's maybe more
personal choice.
He's
definitely is one of his most unique.
Yeah, that I'll definitely
I will give
agree
it that.
with. I'll definitely agree with that.
I'm definitely leaning towards Darren the not when it comes to best, because I like it so much. But I understand your argument.
Yeah, no, I'm just simply saying it's like when you have a body of work like Hans Zimmer's, it's like, oh, that's one of his best. I'm like, are we talking top 25, top 5, top 100?
I think unique makes more sense. What I was intending, like it's a standout.
Yeah,
where it's going to come. If you had to name 5 that stood out for how it kind of caught you, I think it would be on that list.
It's exactly what the movie needed, which is it brought a lot of audio character to the time period, to Holmes himself, and to the adventure, where I will never forget the liner notes for the 4-disc Star Wars trilogy CD set that was released in the 90s with an intro from Nicholas Meyer, where he talked about the horror of working on a film, and you hear the score for the first time, and your reaction, I'm paraphrasing here, your reaction is, oh no, this is all wrong. This is a score where you sit down, and I can imagine Guy Ritchie hearing it and seeing it and going, oh, thank heavens. This is exactly what this movie needed. Thank you, Mr. Zimmer, for doing this for me. Because it is. And I agree with you, Darren. Like, you hear those first couple of notes and you're like, yep, I know what this is from. Yeah.
It adds to the energy. It's like at least 20% of the energy of this movie is just the score.
Easy. Yeah.
If not more.
So this one, it was successful enough to immediately greenlight a sequel. But yet, when the sequel came out, a third film was wanted, but it stayed in development for years. It was delayed because of scheduling and creative challenges, and then it was just too much time had passed. I personally think that not enough time has passed. Maybe we need a few more years, and then we get these two back together.
Well, just looking at the numbers, it's odd because this one was a budget of 90 million, made 524. That's a great return. And was it Game of Shadows? Yeah, Game of Shadows, a little bit bigger budget, 125, made about the same. If I had to shoot in the dark, it's the cast got too expensive. It didn't make sense on paper. You have to bring in Downey Jr., who is now on his meteoric rise. And so now your budget has to be 150, 160. And the sequel proved it still made money, but it made the exact same amount of money. And so now the tipping, and you're having to promote it a whole bunch. So, that's not including marketing, which is a ton of money as well. So that's my guess, is the formula didn't work anymore.
In 2009, or I should say, like when they hired him, 2008, Downey Jr.'s paycheck is a heck of a lot different than 2013 Downey paycheck.
I'm going to say, since they didn't strike between Endgame and now, that the perfect time to strike will be shortly after Doomsday, because I'm willing to bet that Mr. Downey's asking price might not be terrific after that one. Just spitballing there, because I don't predict Doomsday to do too well. So if I were a producer who wanted the third Sherlock Holmes movie, I'd be like, all right, hang on, guys. January of 2027, we might have some room to talk here. So let's just be patient.
When I keep hearing and reading about Downey Jr.'s paychecks, it gets to the point where I'm like, when's enough? Like,
it's like his paycheck is the budget of an entire movie. like a small movie.
Please. But that's all the way back when like Schwarzenegger was making $20 million a movie. I was like, what?
Yeah.
You know, like it makes you long for the days, honestly, even though the movie sucks. At least like Connery donated his salary from Diamonds Are Forever. He was like, I made enough money as James Bond. I'll just give this to the kids. You know, it's like, okay, well, that's thoughtful. Yeah, but yeah, like, I don't know. It is obscene how much money somebody can pull in for. I mean, just give them points on the box office or something for Pete's sake at that point. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure he's getting those too. Now, before we wrap up, I do want to talk about a little bit about where I did see a problem, because I was asking a lot of ambiguous questions where I was just kind of like, could it go this way? Could it go that way? You know, talk about issues that certain people have with it. One issue that I very much had with it, besides just the visual effects, and I mean, it was a little dodgy in the middle too. When we were bouncing from set piece to set piece in the middle, Act 2 feels a little elongated because this is a long movie for an action film. But one thing that kind of bothered me from a Sherlock Holmes perspective is the deduction was not happening in real time. The deduction, we're seeing Holmes deduce and be a detective, but he's not talking about it in a Holmesian way. Because
until the very end.
Until the very end. It's all relayed to the end. Because like we see him, like when they go to the chemist's outfit, and he sees the rhododendron, he sees the frogs, he sees this, he sees that, and everything like that. He's not talking about it to Watson that much. I mean, like don't take me verbatim here, but like, I mean, like, yeah, there's a little bit here and there, but there's more that he's ingesting and saving for the end than he is talking about it and saying, hey, Watson, look at this, rhododendron. I wonder what this is used for, and everything like that. Again, I'm not making a very good case for it, but if you look at the novels, you look at previous movies, previous stories, even the TV show, like Sherlock is talking about his process as he's doing it. This movie did not do that, and I hate info dumps at the end. Am I way off base here? Does that go in line with the changing of the character?
I feel it needed to be done because of the nature of this is an action movie. Not that that's the only thing this is, but like, I think this movie would not have worked as well if right before the third act, we learn what the plot is, and now we just get to watch it play out. Instead, we do not. Holmes knows that, but we do not as the audience. And yeah, and I see the difference you're talking about, Tristan, where it is not the conventional Holmes that we've seen of revealing. It's just bottled up and held close to the vest until the very end. Now, granted, Watson's also taken out of commission for a while, so there is, especially towards the end, so there's not a lot of time to have those conversations in when he would have had that information. But I think it's a kind of core story choice of you still get the playback of, remember when we saw this, and then we saw this, and then we saw that, and like this is how it all fits together. I think it works. I enjoyed that montage is really what it was. Instead of in the moment, it was a montage at the end. But I can see your point as well on that is a change.
I think it's just a modern contrivance sort of thing. That's just how you do it now, I guess. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But like I view it more as the type of thing where audiences now, if they relayed all of that stuff piece by piece as they go through, they would have had to do that info dump at the end anyway, to remind everybody of what they had been told up to that point. Not because audiences are dumb, not because people can't keep it in their brain. I'm not being that guy. But after 2 hours of like these big action sequences and all of this stuff going on and all, and it's such a complex plot and everything like that, you're going to need to take a beat at the end anyway. So why not have the stuff visually laid out of him sniffing things and he doesn't say something and it goes through, and then have the sensation of it all comes together for him as he's going there. That that's detective TV show. That's Murder, She Wrote. That's the sort of thing that I guess I'm just sort of used to seeing. So I don't have an issue with it.
All right. So we've been going for almost an hour talking about Sherlock Holmes 2009. I think it's time to pull the ripcord and figure out what our ratings are. Darren, you always go first when I host. How many rhododendron leaves are you giving this movie?
I want to say how many discombobulates, because, man, they loved when you hear that word, you're just like, ooh, that's a word I don't hear very often, but it's used appropriately. Sherlock Holmes 2009. I was surprised they built the Enterprise on Earth here instead of in space, as they should have. No, we often joke about adding the year when you don't have any other spatial references for when a movie was. This is a fun movie. I like fun movies. I like fun movies that treat audiences with smarts, that have engaging villains, amazing scores. Every time I'm inside a building, it looks amazing. When they're, like you said, when they're doing digital replacement or extension or even just put the camera where a person would be. When the camera's flying through the sky, no, it's pulling me out. But all the other shots when we're grounded in the world, this is a great movie. I have to give it 5. It if anything reignited Sherlock Holmes for another generation. It really did. Like, if this had flopped, we have Sherlock Holmes coming out of our ears now. We have Netflix shows, we have young shows, we have British shows, and all that to say, maybe the British one would have done the same if this hadn't existed, just timing wise, but it really traces back to this. It shook up the formula, but I think stayed true. It felt like Holmes. It didn't feel like, oh, that's just Iron Man with a 5 o'clock shadow. No, it was an interesting character that I enjoyed watching. And, I'm going to rewatch the sequel now to refresh my memory. I think that would be fun as well. So I'm giving it 5 key plot points on the circle map of London. So,
John, how about you?
I love it to the level of a 5. I didn't expect to enjoy this as much as I did on the rewatch. And it is a rousingly good entertainment. I think there are issues. We've talked about them. Tristan, I agree with you. There's a certain point in the middle where I'm kind of like, okay, all right. It feels like almost like you're running a marathon. You're starting to get tired and you haven't hit your second wind. But then once that second wind kicks in, it's fantastic. I have to detract because the visual effects were just so dodgy at certain points, even for the time, quote unquote, for the time. I mean, this came out against Avatar. So you want to talk about falling short. I guess every A team in the world was working on Avatar at the time. So they had to settle for what they could get. All right. That's fair enough. But the fact that there's so much interesting stuff and it's so entertaining. It's a solid 4. And I mean, with the love of a 5, this is something where if I'm given a choice between this and something else, this is always going to be heavily in contention for maybe I will watch this instead. So I come in at a solid 4, incredibly well-crafted entertainment, well worth seeing. So there you go. That's me.
I'm definitely the same. I'm giving this a 4 with the energy of a 5. I love this movie. I've rewatched it several times. I'm going to continue to rewatch it.
You guys act like 4.5 doesn't exist.
Oh, I'm sorry, Darren. I thought half stars weren't allowed here anymore.
You're both saying
Darren's arguing for the 4.5.
But it almost is a 5. If only there was something in the middle.
No. We did not say almost a 5. We said it's a 4 with the energy and the enthusiasm of a 5.
Right.
I actually came into this podcast giving it a 3.5 because of the VFX and the dodginess in the middle and the deduction that I missed. But after seeing it again with my sister and then talking about it with you guys, no, I can't in good conscience give this a 3.5. This is 4 with the love of a 5, absolutely. And I'm always chagrined that we didn't get a third one. But Darren, what are we doing next week?
Next week, we're rounding out the end of The Wing of Holmes with 2015's Mr. Holmes, starring Sir Ian McKellen, next week on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.